The stunning Sportsland Sugo in Japan is the host of the first of our 2 weekends of the Japan Cup for 2025. It is the 4th year of the Japan Cup from SRO and the second as a standalone race series. Welcome along to Sportsland Sugo. Quite a different combination of conditions that we have today, much higher cloud than we had yesterday for qualifying and what looks to be dry conditions. Sportsland Sugo is the opening round of this year's calendar for 2 Power Tour events with GT World Challenge Asia in Fuji and Okayama, and then Japan Cup will support the 1,000-kilometer race at the Suzuka circuit in the middle of September to round out an 8-round championship of 4 weekends. First 2 years, the Japan Cup, part of a sub-championship within the GT World Challenge Asia, but for the last 2 years, a standalone race series, such has been the interest in Japan around racing for and with the SRO series. A big full season entry leads us to 18 cars on today's grid. Mixed category grid of GT3s, GT4s and GTC category cars. Sugo, a wonderful little circuit that provides us with great racing, undulating through the deep forests, providing an entertaining challenge for our gentlemen combinations of Pro-Am, Am drivers, and in the GT4 category, Silver Am drivers. Slightly different to GT World Challenge Asia in that both races happen on the Sunday, which means race 1 starting earlier in the Sunday and race 2 later in the Sunday. Qualifying taking place on Saturday, and qualifying was a very wet affair on Saturday afternoon. It has left us with a slightly mixed up field with the powerhouses of the Japan Cup, K-Tunes Racing in their 98 and 96 machines, finding themselves with much larger competition than their dominant fashion of 2024. It was K-Tunes that basically took most of the victories in last year's season, but Bingo Racing victory here last.
GT ファンの間で確かな存在感を築いてきました。開幕の舞台を彩るのは GT3、GT4、GTC といったトップカテゴリーのマシーンたち。名だたる GT ブランドが集結し、目が離せないシーズンの幕がいよいよ上がります。今シーズンもグリッドに戻ってきた前澤レーシング。ドライバーはご存知、エンターテイナー前澤友作選手とベテラン横溝直樹選手のコンビです。今年もひときわ異彩を放つこのチームは、マシンやピットのカラーリングにも細部までこだわりが詰まっています。
とにかく赤と白、紅白、日本で紅白って言えばお祝い事の時に使う色ですから、それを意識しました。もちろん気合は100点満点なんですけど、レース人生まだ2年目なんで、安全運転心がけながら自分のベストを尽くしたいと思います。
はい、本当にね、前澤さん2年目なんですよ。でもここまですごいいいペースで来てるので、常に上位を目指して、そしてやっぱり優勝できたらいいなっていうところですけど、我々はやっぱりそのチャレンジャーなんで、経験豊富なね先輩たちに肩を借りるつもりで、胸を借りるつもりで頑張りたいと思います。
頑張ります。
K チューンズレーシング96号車に乗り込むのは国内トップクラスの実力を誇る福住二玲選手。豊富な経験と圧倒的なセンスを武器に初戦からすでに大きな注目を集めています。
そうですね、このカテゴリーに、出るように、決まったのがまだ2月3月ぐらいで、ほとんど僕もこの車両にはまだ乗ってない状態ですし、でも本当に貴重な経験ができると思いましたので、しっかりそのお話をいただいた時には嬉しいなと思いましたし、本当に開幕戦今週行われるということで非常に楽しみです。
昨年このスゴーで2勝を挙げ圧倒的な強さを見せたビンゴレーシング。今シーズンはマシーンをフェラーリにスイッチしさらなる高みを目指す。フル参戦となる笹原右京選手とともに新たな挑戦が始まった。その覚悟と進化に迫ります。
スゴーはやっぱりオールドスクールサーキットってよく言われて、ランオフエリアが非常に少なく、本当コースアームも狭いので、ただスピードレンジは非常に高いので、その限界ギリギリをやっぱ引き出すのがすごいこの GT3 の車では非常に大事で、特に近年の GT3 はやっぱすごい車がレベルアップしていて、その中でのプロ同士の中でも最後のコンマ1秒、あるいはそれ以下を引き出すにはもうコースを目いっぱい使わないといけないので、このスゴーは特にそれが一番顕著に出るので、その辺が非常に楽しみです。
出るからにはチャンピオンを取りたいと思っていて、1戦、2戦半ぐらいはちょっと僕が足を引っ張りそうなんですけども、最終的には自分もポテンシャルをしっかり出して、ライバルに勝ちたいなと思ってます。
A nice feel of the paddock in Japan Cup for 2025. Some familiar faces and some new names. Maezawa, absolutely one of the very best and very exciting to have Maezawa with us. He was, and the team, invited as ineligible for points, but a guest entry in the final races of last year in Okayama alongside the 7-7 team, and both teams back for 2025. In charge, our CEO Benjamin.
2025開幕戦、決勝日はですね、昨日の予選日とは打って変わりましてドライコンディション、決勝のグリッド、非常にですね熱い熱気で盛り上がってるんですけれども、まずは SRO のベンジャミンさんにお話を聞いていこうと思います。So Benjamin, another start of the Japan Cup 2025. What are you looking forward for this season? What do you want your fans to look out for?
Well, I'm very happy that it's finally round one of Japan Cup in Sugo. It's only our third season, and the grid quality has grown, the numbers have grown, we have more GT3 cars than we expected, GTC Porsche numbers are growing, so we're doing very well, and of course we have GT4, so we're very happy, and it's looking like a great season.
はい、2025年まずはこうして無事に開幕することができて非常に嬉しく思っております。今年もご覧いただくと分かるようにグリッドのもう車の数も増えてますし、非常にクオリティも上がっていること大変喜ばしいです。 GT3 の車両も増えて、さらに GT4 も非常にコンペティティブなね、カテゴリーになっておりますので、もう本当に見どころ盛りだくさんのシーズンになっていると思います。 So let's enjoy the first round of Japan Cup.
Thank you.
Thank you. 以上です。
Three different categories then, as Benjamin alluded to there, the GT3 category, the GTC category for, effectively for cup cars, that's what C stands for, and of course Porsche Carrera Cup, Japan and across the world, very, very successful, so a small category for those who want to go endurance racing with their GTC machines, and then we have GT4, we're on board here with the 39 GT4 machine, a popular format that we see in British GT, duplicated here in Japan with the GT4 car running in the same race as the GT3 machine. Something we used to, of course, see in the early days of the GT World Challenge Asia, but as the grid and the popularity has grown, now it's completely GT3 cars, such as everybody wanting to run those GT3 machines. But here in the Japan Cup, we do have 3 GT4 cars. Conditions mostly cloudy, 21 degrees, not much different actually in terms of temperature to what we had yesterday, but without that wet rain and rainy conditions that compromised our qualifying sessions. It wasn't too bad. The main loser really in qualifying was the K-Tunes Lexus. K-Tunes running 3 different cars as they did last year, 1 in GT4, 2 in GT3, a Lexus and a Ferrari in GT3. And it was the Lexus that was the only real spinner I think we saw in qualifying. Went round, banged into the barrier in Q1, and therefore didn't get a time in Q1 nor in Q2. We're watching out for that Lexus today because it's going to have a lot of work to do. But it's a car that has taken victory in GT World in the Japan Cup last season, and it was just a single victory at Suzuka. And certainly it was a team and a car that was not equal to its partner car in the 98, the championship winning Ferrari of Takagi and Yamawaki. And that partnership and that duo running in the Ferrari 296 once again. Main problem for them is there is a lot of other people who have chosen that Ferrari 296 as their vehicle of choice for this season, including these guys. Bingo, the number 9 adorned on the side of the Corvette in 2024, but Bingo Racing have decided that they're going to run a Ferrari 296 in partnership with LM Corsa, and that means they are on very much equal footing to Maezawa Racing and to K-Tunes Racing. Look at the flood of people at the bottom of shot. Emily is down on the grid and hoping to get some interviews with some of the drivers, but I have to say she's going to really struggle with an amazing grid walk being organised here, and it's about to overwhelm the ability for us to see any cars on that grid. Such as the popularity of racing in Japan. We know, of course, how popular racing in Japan is. And Emily is now down with Team Up Garage with ACR. Let's hear what she has.
はい、放送席、見事ですね。ジャパンカップ開幕戦レース1ポールポジションからスタートしますのはチームアップガレージ with ACR、小林隆選手にお話聞いていきたいと思います。打って変わって今日はドライコンディションなんですけれども、まずは昨日の予選ピレリタイヤでの、ウェットでの予選っていうのは改めていかがでしたでしょうか。
はい、もうウェットを履くのが実質初めてで、ほぼぶっつけっていう形だったんですけど、秋田選手が素晴らしいアタックでポール取れたので本当に良かったかなと思います。
パートナーから見て秋田選手のアタックラップっていうのはどういうふうにご覧になられてましたか。
途中までもうずっと6番手7番手ぐらいで、ちょっと今週、レース1はきついかなと思ってたんですけど、最後の最後でトップタイム出してくれて、見せるなって思いましたね。さすがです。
So yesterday about the qualifying, it was obviously a wet condition. Because the team is not really used to Pirelli tires, the wet condition, they thought it was a tricky condition. But during the 6th lap of the qualifying yesterday with his partner Akita, he was very impressed and really looking forward for his performance today. では改めて最高の位置からのスタートとなる本日のレース1、パートナーとともにどのように戦っていきたいでしょうか。
はい、もちろん優勝できるように頑張りたいと思うので、精一杯チーム力を合わせて頑張ります。
So today he will race very hard with his partner to aim the P1 for the very first opening of the Japan Cup. 頑張ってください。
ありがとうございます。
以上です。
Takashi Kobayashi, the pro, in that Pro-Am entry, the number 18, with Akita, the Am entry that qualified the car in qualifying, won and got themselves on the pole position. But that was the form yesterday. That was the form in rainy conditions. Not necessarily what we are going to see in the slick conditions. And so many of these teams are also taking delivery of their new GT3 cars relatively late. We heard from Bingo Racing yesterday, I believe it was Bingo Racing, saying that they had barely any time. Basically, this weekend was their shakedown of their newly delivered Ferrari, and therefore they were very much still trying to get used to it and trying to find out what they can expect. There is a lot of Ferraris on the field and the grid. It's almost sort of half a single make Ferrari 296. Emily is back down on the grid. Let's hear who she's got.
はい、本日2番グリッドからスタートしますのがカナバ24マックスレーシングです。本島優也選手にお話聞いていこうと思うんですけれども、まずは昨日の予選マシンの中トラブルがあったみたいなんですけど、今大丈夫なんでしょうか。
そうですね、Q2 僕乗ってる時にちょっとしたトラブルがあって、最初の計測1周のみのタイムになってしまったんですけど、メカさんが昨晩しっかり修理してくれたので今日は問題ないです。
笑顔見てると自信のほども伺いますが。
そうですね、特に内田選手が本当にレースペース安定してて、でやっぱりヨーロッパですごいたくさんいろんなレース経験されているので、本当に私たちレースには自信持っているので、楽しみです。
So yesterday in qualifying in Q2, there was some issues with the car. There were some accidents, troubles going on. But last night, the mechanics worked very, very hard and fixed the car. Him and his partner and the team feels completely confident with the car and the race pace today. And yesterday, his partner did a brilliant lap. And he has some very much experience in Europe, racing in Europe. So today, he's very looking forward to have a good race with his partner. では、優勝も狙える位置からのスタートとなります。改めて決勝に向けた意気込みをお願いします。
もちろん、チームオーナーさんからも言われてるんですけど、優勝だけを目指してやれと言われているので、第1レースから優勝だけを目指して頑張ります。
So the orders from the team owner is, we just need a win. We don't need anything else. So his first thing that he will go for is for the victory. では頑張ってください。
ありがとうございます。
以上です。
We just need a win. Nothing else. No lower standard than that. Max Racing from Super GT with plenty of high-end experience in Japan. Racing in that Mercedes AMG GT3, one of the older GT3 race cars these days. And nice to give us a little bit of variance. We do have the 488, the older Ferrari on the grid. And we also have, of course, the K-Tunes Lexus. Here is the 555 Maezawa Racing Ferrari. We saw these guys in Okayama last year as a guest entry. We've just met the team in our build-up, and they will be starting on the third row. Great to have Mr. Spaceman, man who spent 11 and a half minutes in space, learning the ropes. Not a huge amount of experience, again, just the second weekend in Japan Cup, but got a chance to fight with the very best in Japan in this first stint. There is our champions from last year then. The Ferrari number 98, an unchanged lineup in the K-Tunes Racing of Yamawaki and Takagi. But as you can see, in those rainy conditions, it didn't go their way. And they start down on row 3. Competition has definitely stepped up in Japan Cup for 2025. Italian-Japanese Kei Cozzolino will be in the car for the second stint. And let's go down now to our GT4 leaders from last year.
はい、本日12番グリッドからスタートしますのがトヨタガズーレーシングインドネシアカナバ39番の野中誠太選手です。まずは GT4 クラスからポールでねスタートするんですけれども、車の仕上がりやご自身の手応えとしてはいかがでしょうか。
はい、GT4 でポールだけじゃなくてGT3 勢に混じってのこのハリダルマ選手のスーパーラップだったので、車の調子すごくいいですし、ドライでも問題なくたくさんテストできてますので、自信持って挑みたいかなと思ってます。
ご自身のアタックについてもちょっと触れていたいんですけれども、ピレリタイヤでこそこさせる経験が多分、日本人ドライバー皆さん少ない中でウェットのアタックいかがでした？
本当に最後までフルプッシュできるぐらい本当にグリップレベルも高いですし、本当そこは信頼が あるので、ドライとレインタイヤもどちらともいいパフォーマンスかなと思ってます。
わかりました。ではこの後の決勝、パトラとともに熱い走り期待してますね。
はい、ありがとうございます。頑張ります。
So we were just talking about yesterday's qualifying. Well, yesterday with his partner, he doesn't have a lot of experience in Pirelli tires in the wet condition, but he was very impressed with his partner's attack lap, and himself, he said it was a very good experience. Starting from P12, but pole position for the GT4 class. Of course, it's a very happy result, but he got even over the GT3 classes, so he was very happy with his partner's drive, and he is looking forward to the race today. Let's take a look. 以上です。
Nonaka from Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia back with us. We've seen them participate with one or two cars in GT4 over the last couple of years in that trusty Supra, and really great to welcome them back for this year as a staple, not at champions, but as staples of the GT4 category. The number one adorns Team Machina Uematsu this year, having won last year's AM Championship alone, has Hiroki Katsu Suzuki alongside him for this year as the grid begins to clear. We did have a quick look at Cozzolino. There is the circuit, 3.5 kilometers in length, so not the longest of circuits, but a busy circuit with 13 separate corners across that 3.5 kilometers. That record in 2022, a 1:20.7. And it could well be that we can get under that today. Let's go now. Driver's eye around this Sportsland Sugo track.
こんにちは、一つ山、with コンズレーシングの、川端慎太郎です。では、スポーツランドスゴーのドライバーズアイ、至っていきましょう。まず1コーナーは上りながらのブレーキです。右コーナー2つ続くので円を描くように走行します。で2コーナー立ち上がりますとすぐに左コーナーになりますので、右側に立ち上がって、左コーナーを大きく走るのがポイントです。で4コーナー、上りながらコーナリングです。でこの先、狭い S 字があるので姿勢を整えて、ここすごく難しいです。狭いところを通りながら、頑張って駆け上がっていきます。で右コーナーまた2つ続きます。でハイポイントレインボー、ここが高低差一番高いところですね。で、この先ストレートなので立ち上がり、非常にシビアです。で下りながらのストレート、この先馬の背コーナーです。曲がりながらブレーキですがまっすぐ止めることを意識します。でここヘアピンコーナーを抜けまして、この先、スゴー名物の SP コーナーですね。ここ少しのブレーキングで曲がらないといけないので、とても難しくまだ狭いです。非常にスリリングで楽しいコーナーですね。はい、最後最終コーナーです。ここは高低差12メートルを一気に駆け上がっていきますが、クラッシュが多く非常に危険なコーナーなので、スゴーに魔物が住んでいると言われる、由来のコーナーでもあるかと思います。でまた1コーナーでオーバーテイクでも非常に重要なコーナーなので、最終コーナー非常に、気をつけて走行します。
Not a fully dry surface along the main straight from the 296 there. You can see slightly damp patches still where we have had rain, and a look at the driver's eye car that has just guided us around the circuit. Thank you very much to Corners Racing and Kawabata, who was our very well explained around this Sugo circuit, the demon of Sugo, that long right-hander uphill. And actually that's a great shot to show that it is really uphill, and cars appear around that final turn. On board with the 555, on board with the 39 as well. And now lights on the gantry, and we can get our 2 formation laps underway. Max Racing, the orange Mercedes on the racing line, the left-hand side therefore, whilst doesn't have the inside line into turn 1, has the preferred racing line, and that therefore means the pole position is on the left-hand side, with second spot on the inside right-hand side going down towards turn 1. Very green circuit. Green meaning that any rubber laid down over practice is not there anymore. It's all been cleared away. We are potentially expecting rainy conditions later on today for race 2. The pole in GT4 AM, the K-Tunes 97 Toyota. In the GTC AM category, Bingo Racing's Tiger Wu. And then in Silver AM in GT4, Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia, the 39 machine. GT3 AM, Team Machina on the pole position. And then we've got the Pro Am category, which has the number 18 on the pole position. And so the grid looks like this. Pole on the inside, sorry, completely against what I was saying earlier. Akita has the pole position, Uchida and the Mercedes second spot. Then we have Suzuki in the 296 in third. There is Maezawa Racing, the 55 in fifth position, alongside champions last year in the 98. The number 1 are AM champion, seventh and best AM overall. And then behind them, Banksy is the 8th position in GT3 Pro-Am. Run-Up Sports back with us in the 360, and then we have to go down into the GTC category. Tiger Wu there ahead of compatriot in the number 17 Kono. And then we have one GT3 car out of position, that Lexus. Watch out for that Lexus in 16th spot. Will be making up plenty of places, no doubt, after missing basically in qualifying. Suenaga was the driver who looped it around and rolled just about there, wasn't it? Maybe not, wrong part of the circuit, but looped it around, rolled the car into the barrier, caused a little bit of rear end damage, but enough not to be able to participate any further in qualifying. You would have noticed as we ran through that a lot of Ferraris. Over half of our GT3 entry, the 296 GT3, mixed in with a splattering of other vehicles. 2 Mercedes from Akiland and Max. And we've got the Lexus, the Nissan, and of course the Ferrari 488 as well. The older generation Ferrari GT3 car on board with Maezawa. Mr. Maezawa himself will take the first stint. A reminder, in all of these cars, we have amateur competitors. We don't have any pros. We don't have any silvers in Japan Cup, and therefore any Pro-Am or any AM category car will have the AM driver in it. It's like just one formation lap, in fact. Race control happy. We do not need to do 2. We would usually do 2 in GT World Challenge Asia, but cars are lining up 2x2 formation to get us going and racing here in Sugo for race 1 of the Japan Cup for 2025, and it's a pretty good start. Over the line we go. Akita in the yellow Ferrari on the inside. The orange Mercedes tries to go around the outside. That doesn't happen, and it's a very well-behaved affair in the first 5 cars. A little bit busier further back as we squabble for position, but they all know that this 60-minute race is long. We've got a driver change in the middle as well, and so just getting the rhythm, getting into the good spirit. A big slide from Akita on the exit of that particular corner. That might put him under pressure from Uchida in that Max Racing orange Mercedes, but it's a big car and it's a fiddly little circuit, this Sugo racetrack, to find your way through. Suzuki in 3rd position in that 296 Ferrari from Corners Racing. We go on board with Maezawa in 5th position still. Looks down the inside, makes that a very brave move. Has he got the car underneath him? Yes, he has, to make that move stick. Great aggressive move from Mr. Maezawa, and that puts him, I think, up into, that puts him back into 5th position. So that was actually him going back ahead. Live timing going to update itself as we come through the final turn and complete one lap. It's Akita in the 18, Uchida in the 24, then Suzuki, and then Takai. A good start from the Bingo Racing. And actually a bad start from Yamawaki, down to 8th position in the Pro-Am K-Tunes championship winning car from last year. 1 position gained from Suenaga, who's being careful in the Lexus, down in 14th position, but Yamawaki hasn't made much progress in this first lap. Oh, and slow out of there. Akita's lost the lead to Uchida in the Mercedes. Both laps so far, Akita struggling at turn 5, I think, in getting the power down. All of these teams new to Japan Cup this year are learning the Pirelli tyre. Of course, racing in Japan tends to come with racing on Japanese rubber, but Pirelli, the partner of SRO, of course, all the different championships, the organizer of the Japan Cup, and therefore these drivers and teams having to get used to that Pirelli rubber, which is used in GT World Challenge Asia and across the world. But if you haven't done that, if you're coming from Super GT or Super Taikoo, all of those different championships here in Japan, then you've got to get used to it. Just running a little bit wide there, Akita in that yellow Ferrari, and couldn't get the power down early enough. So Uchida down the inside and up into the lead of the race. Uchida in the Mercedes, Akita in the 18 Ferrari in 2nd position, and then Suzuki in the 296 in 3rd. Looks like we may have seen a change of position behind. Takai in the Bingo Racing number 9, Maezawa then in the 555, Sojiko in the 45 with the best lap of the race so far in his Ferrari 296. But that Max Racing Mercedes not getting away ahead of the field, and it's all very line and stern right now. Right in the middle of it is this 555 on board with Maezawa. Just watching that steering wheel, those inputs, nice and smooth. Such a great car. Through this big, long right-hand turn at the end of the lap. It's also climbing up the hill. So you need to get yourself set up early because loads can increase, and then up and browing the top of the hill before starting to plunge back downhill again into turn 1. Mr. Maezawa with 3 cars directly ahead of him, Takai and Suzuki. And there's a little bit of a gap, isn't there, to Akita, who had the fastest lap of the last lap of the race, 22.1. But a good pace being set by Max Racing and Uchida at the head of the field right now. The team manager of Max Racing, Akira Ida, the winner in Fuji last year. Sorry, not last year, 2 years ago in the Japan Cup, when it was still part of GT World Challenge Asia not as a standalone series. So experience and understanding of the processes that SRO have brought into Japanese motorsport, which may be slightly different to other championships. Anytime you go racing, your championship and your race series will be different to the one that you're used to, the one that you've raced in before. It does just take a little bit of getting used to. Those little tiny regulations, the best way to go about racing. Even just the rules and following the rules. Maezawa here. He was aggressive with that defense on Sugo in the 45 to get himself back up to that 5th position. now, as everybody's got their temperature in the tyres, does look as though perhaps they're not quite. They're all rather equal to each other, aren't they? Even Yamawaki in the 98 at the tail of this long 4.5 second crocodile not managed to make any inroads, although traditionally it has been Takai, his teammate in that Pro-Am car, that is the one that is able to make the difference in the second part of the race. Still a lot of green sectors out on circuit, so still a lot of improving going on. Reminder that wet conditions in qualifying and in the early part of practice, teams still getting used to what their cars can do as well as the tyres, and that is a slight mistake from Akita there, just a little bit deep into turn 1 that compromised his line through 2 and 3, and that has dropped him into the clutches of Suzuki, allowed Uchida perhaps a little breathing space. Also in there, in the 666, up in 7th position, Banksy, much like Maezawa, a guest entry into Okayama last year, and actually I think memory serves he took victory in race 1 in Okayama last year, but as a guest entry didn't score points. And great to have Banksy in the 717 back with us in 7th position. Here's the leader in GT4, Manopo, with a just over 2-second advantage over the other of our GT4 Silver Am competitor cars, which is the Sunrise Boulevard Porsche we had with us last year. Just the 2 GT4 Silver Am cars, and then we have the 1 Am, which is the K-Tunes Supra, down in 18th position. All 18 cars running from that entry list at the start of the week. And a quick look at the outside of the Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia car. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Uchida not getting away, gap 0.7 of a second to Akita. This is the problem zone for Akita over the last couple, or the first couple of laps, wasn't it? Where he just struggled with those slightly colder temperatures, those colder tyres. Tell you what a great racetrack for the one very simple reason: you go too wide and you're off in the grass. There's no such thing here as track limit infringements like we see in so many of our modern day racetracks. That is the grass on the edge of the circuit, our track limit. The 21.8 now for Uchida. So last lap was his best lap of the race, but by the looks of things, Akita now in the yellow Ferrari, getting back into terms with the Mercedes. So is there going to be a better lap here from Akita on that last lap? No difference as we let our first 8 competitors go through, and 9th position on the back of the train. Uematsu goes a little bit wide in GT3 Am. He's leading that category by a good 10 seconds, trying to stay with the rest of our Ams. And of course, Uematsu doing the full season last year on his own in his McLaren, switching to Ferrari, but also getting himself a teammate for this year. Gosh, that could have been a lot worse, couldn't it? It wasn't that he ran wide, he got a bit of chunky oversteer on the exit, the corner, and it was a big old correction to save the car from sliding. So Chico in the 45 for Ponus Racing, fastest lap of anybody on that last one. So he's closing in on Maezawa ahead. Gaps are still small though, less than half a second separating Uchida and Atika. And you can see that visually there. Then there is a 1 second gap to Suzuki, as our leaders already come up to traffic. A very different characteristic of racing when you have GT4 cars in the mix, and this K-Tunes Supra is going to try and stay out the way, but he has just compromised Suzuki massively there. Takai will take advantage of that in the bingo racing Ferrari. Now gets out of the way and lets the rest of them through, but they were compromised, the Kronos Racing Ferrari. But Takai hasn't managed to jump on and take advantage there. It has backed them all up into each other, so absolutely nothing between Suzuki, Takai, Maezawa and Sujiko. There is 1.7 then to Banksy, but that is not the end of the traffic. 2 more GT4 cars for our leaders to pass, and I do like that multi-class element of both this and the British Championship, whereas many of our championships across the SRO platform are single make GT3 racing. You don't necessarily get that element of traffic you do in GT4. There was Toyota, not much it could do really. It got out of the way of our leading 2 and just found itself on the apex. It's the responsibility of the GT3 car to overtake the GT4. It's not the responsibility of the GT4 to get out of the way. But unfortunately, maybe Suzuki not quite anticipating when he was going to catch that GT4 car. So that's put a little bit of a gap between Akita and Suzuki. 1.1 the gap now between those two, between second and third. And you feel as though there's some very impatient amateur drivers in those cars behind. Bingo Racing, for Maezawa Racing, for Ponos Racing as well, all wanting to get past this 296 Corners Racing Ferrari. Back on board with Maezawa. Very smooth with his inputs. Being beautifully driven, this 555 Ferrari. Of course, almost he has more, and the team have more experience in this Ferrari than many of our competitors. Bingo Racing, for instance, with the Corvette last year, switching to Ferrari for this one, but very little experience for the number 9 machine that Maezawa is chasing down. A little bit of opposite lock as well in this fiddly first sector of the lap. Many of our competitors still in the 21s. 21.8 for Uchida, 21.9 for Akita. We are starting to drop back into the 122s. Oh, mile wide. Maezawa is going to go around and into the gravel, and it's going to go into the barrier as well. He's kept it out of the wall. Now he needs to keep the momentum. Ah, no. That is an absolute disaster for Maezawa, because that is game over, I'm afraid. He will do what he can to get out of that gravel trap, but you saw how quickly it slowed the car down, and that means the floor is on the sand, the wheels are spinning, it's heavy and thick with water as well, and Maezawa is out of the race. And I fear that may also mean we will get a safety car to recover that car. We are only 7 minutes away from getting ourselves into the pit window. That was the K-Tunes Racing Lexus making up some ground further back. Still hasn't really done anything, saying 14th spot with all of the GTC category cars ahead of him. At least he's ahead of the GT4 cars. But starting way down the field has really compromised that K-Tunes Lexus. Yellow flag flying. You're just going to try and cover this off? No, full course yellow. Everyone drops down to 60 kilometers an hour. I'm interested that they've gone full course yellow when almost they'll have to go safety car, but maybe full course yellow initially, and and then we'll go safety car once our leader is in the correct position. The replay shows Maezawa just understeering wide onto the very wet grass, and then he's a passenger, has got no control on that wet grass. What he did do very well is get that car spinning into the gravel trap, and that has slowed him down massively. There was a twitch, wasn't there? So it wasn't necessarily all understeer. Turned in, got the rear sliding, and unfortunately the car swapping ends. Now, no sign yet of how they're going to be recovering this car. A quick look at the towing eye at the rear of the Ferrari, but I'm afraid it means we will not see Naoki Yokomiso. We'll have to wait for race 2 this afternoon, when the pros are the drivers that start the Pro-Am cars, and that's when we will get a chance to see Yokomiso. No real reaction, mainly frustration, no doubt, but the smallest mistake costing Maezawa dear, and nothing really he could have done there. Got the snap of oversteer, corrected, found himself offline, kept putting in the inputs, kept putting in the steering. Now, interestingly, we are still full course yellow, but everybody seems to be bunched up. And no, the gaps were definitely not that tight. I'm not quite sure how the safety car picks up our leader, because our leader is right in the tailpipes of our GT4 leader, Manopo. Talking of leaders, there is the GTC leader, Tiger Wu, for Bingo Racing. The 888 machine with that amazing livery on the car. He is the only competitor this year doing just driving on his own. So he will share that car with himself. He will have a slightly longer pit stop when he comes into the pits. But ultimately, he will be up to speed when he jumps back out into the racing for the second stint. Something we saw Uematsu successfully do in GT3 last year. A little bit of a shame that Uematsu hasn't continued with that McLaren, because it would give us a little bit more variance in our field. The little, I suppose you don't call it a digger, do you? But it's Caterpillar tracked little tractor seemingly doing the job and dragging that Ferrari out of the gravel trap, which will not be the easiest of things to do. 38.5 minutes remaining of the race, so just 3 minutes remaining before we open pit lane. And for all of our Pro-Am category cars, that really means I want to get our Am drivers out and put our Pro drivers in. So the safety car has managed to get itself in between the Mercedes leader in GT3 and our GT4 leader, and this is going to be nice because it's going to bring and allow the GT4s to go all the way around on the tail of this queue. No damage necessarily done by that spin. What they will find is that a lot of gravel needs to be cleared out of all those little nooks and crannies. Mainly, and the worst bit, and speaking from experience, is where the stones get in between the pad and the disc. And if you then start applying the brakes when you've got gravel there, you instantly do a set of brake pads and you instantly have the possibility of scraping your discs as well. I think Maezawa is trying to get himself away under his own steam, but even the grass is too slippy to find traction with slick tyres to get him moving. So we're not under safety car conditions yet. That's why the safety car Toyota Supra does not have its lights on, but it is out there on track, ready to pick up the drivers once we go into the safety car conditions. Absolutely nothing between our top 7, 8 runners. There is Uematsu at the tail of our top 8 as the GT3 AM leader, quite significantly ahead of its rival in the 71, which is the Akiland Mercedes, and then the 360 Nissan. Those are the 3 that are doing GT3 AM this year. Now, understand that what we're going to do here is we are going to open pit lane in a minute's time as scheduled, and we are then going to cycle through all of the pits stops before we then go green again. However, let's see what the teams do, because we don't really, the AM competitor cars won't really want to come into the pit straight away and change over necessarily. They could do, and why not, I suppose. Here's a replay of the start then, and watch the yellow Ferrari leading down into turn 1, but not particularly confident under brakes. But mainly the mistake comes at 3 or 4 corners in. Everyone pretty clean through turn 1. Maezawa in that white Ferrari must lose a position a bit later on in the lap. Still in 5th position there, but our leader is about to get himself a bit of oversteer and lose that lead. There it is, that snap of oversteer, and suddenly the Mercedes number 24 smells blood. So, pit window, I would have thought, it's not announced yet, but I would have thought it is open. 34 minutes and 40 seconds remain. Race Control haven't announced that it is open, but I'm expecting, are we going to see everybody coming in at the same time? I don't think so. No, there are various cars deciding they don't want to. And I don't know whether the teams know what I know, because what was announced was they're going to allow everybody to do their pit stops before we go back to green flag racing. Well, in that case, you want to come in at the same time as everybody else. You do not want to be left out there on circuit. And Uchida in the Mercedes is staying out behind the safety car. That's going to promote them up into, well, they were already in the lead of the race, weren't they? So not promote them at all. But I suppose we're under full course yellow conditions, not safety car conditions, and so it actually shouldn't change anything, because everybody should be in exactly the same speed on their full course yellow buttons. So lots of action now down in pit lane. Full change of tyres, change of driver as well, and for those pro-am entries such as Bingo Racing here, a pro driver getting in. For them, Ukyo Sasahara will be their pro driver in that Bingo Racing number 9. Quite the 71 of Akiland, a little bit out of position. You can't service the car unless you are in your box like everybody else is, and in fact Akiland have managed to now get their car into the right position, but that would have compromised the 71, and that could well be a longer pit stop than they would have intended. Out of the pits, 296, then 9, then 45, then 66, then 98. Still in the pits, our championship leaders, according to our graphics. They lost position to the number 1. There's the 66 car guy, Ferrari, of Otta and Toyota. And another of our GT AM competitors, the run-up sport Nissan, Tanaki, jumping aboard that car. Boulevard Racing Porsche, second in GT4. But that is not everybody's service now. We've still got a couple of cars to go, which means we still wait for this Mercedes to come into pits. And weirdly, the Toyota Supra safety car catching the Porsche of High Pont Racing, the number 17, ahead. So perhaps not on the not quite on the speed limit that it needs to be. So Max Racing then come into the pits from the lead of the race. It's going to be Uchida out and Motojima in. They've left it one lap later. No real reason that I can understand as to why they would do that. One perhaps for Emily to decipher. And Tiger Wu is the other driver that we didn't see in pits on that last time by. So there is Tiger, the 888 machine, and he has to get out of the car. And I think the regulations say he'll go to a loop of the car. Or he just has to simply, yes, it used to be you had to run around the car, but that's a bit silly. So he now just has to get out, take a step away and get back in again. Also into the pits, the K-Tunes Supra GT4 AM competitor. I think that should then be all of our cars serviced. Now, Mercedes there on the left-hand side, somehow I think it's going to lose a couple of positions here. I don't quite understand how this has happened, but through the shot comes the 296 ahead of the 9. It's been a slow stop, presumably for Kobayashi, because the 18 has dropped down 6 positions, and Max Racing come out of the pits, and I think they've dropped to the tail of that group. They stay ahead of Takagi, the 98, but they are behind the number 1. So there should never have been any opportunity to shuffle, because everybody should have been exactly the same speed under that full course yellow. But somehow, especially as the pit stops are regulated, and so you don't need to particularly worry about your pit stop time. They should be absolutely perfect. But it does seem as though some people have had faster pit stops than others, and particularly the number 18 machine and the 98 have got themselves, or have lost themselves quite a bit of time. Right, I think that's now everybody pitted. We are just waiting for the 97 to come back out onto circuit, and then race control will be able to then call a safety car. We'll be able to go back racing shortly. There is the 24 then. Max Racing. We spoke to Yuya on the grid. Motojima should have easily inherited the lead, and maybe they still have, and maybe I'm getting myself a bit mixed up and confused here. What I can see, there is the number 1 ahead, and the live timing's still saying that they are in the race, but is that not because it's not sorted itself out from the last split? Because it will now start sorting itself out. So 296 is about to come over the line as the new leader of the race, I think. Yeah, there we go. I don't know how this has happened. Answers on a postcard, please. But Kawabata leads Sasahara, and that is going to be our battle when we go back to racing. Of course, we are going to have a safety car first, so we're going to bunch everything up before we go green. But from the 18 and the 24 leading pre-pit stops, all pit stops under full course yellow, we've got a vastly different order in the second half of this race. Somewhere also out on circuit is the safety car that was, of course, leading the 24 machine. But then that went into the pits, and now we'll be sort of lost in low man's land, trying to work out where the leader is. Because what it needs to do is be ahead of this 296 car now, bunch the cars up, and then the idea behind the safety car out on circuit, there he is, he has slowed down in fact, so the Toyota Supra safety car will now pick up our leaders. Don't let them pass, don't let them pass. Okay, what? No, I think he's still looking for the 24 Mercedes, but live timing suggests that that's all rather mixed up now, and no wonder he'd be confused. He's just waved past our leaders, which means we're going to carry on a little bit more longer before we get our safety car period. Now, the reason why we go safety car after full course yellow, the safety car can go faster than full course yellow, so you can get yourself back up to good racing speed. So, okay, here we go. So that was the 296 jumping the number 9 in the pit stop. So really, really great pit stop. That changed that position. Was it unsafe? I don't think so. I'm not quite sure why Sasahara felt the need to weave in the pit lane. But the more curious thing is how they all managed to jump ahead of the 24 and the 18. I think it's simply through pit stop time. I don't have pit stop time on my live timing, I'm afraid, so I can't tell you exactly how long everybody was in the pits. But one would assume that either regulations have not been read and the 296 and 9 have gone too fast in the pits and therefore penalties will be coming their way, or 24 and the 18 were too slow in the pits. Right, safety car is now grabbed our leaders. Right, so Emily's in the pit. She's going to answer some questions for us, I think. Let's go down and find out what exactly has happened through that pit stop phase.
ファーストスティントを担当しました内田選手お話聞いていきたいと思うんですけれども、まずはマックスレーシングの1番手としてもうオーバーテイクが素晴らしかったんですけれども、ご自身のスティントを振り返っていただいていかがですか？
そうですね、スタート直後からね狙ってはいたんですけど、なかなか秋田選手も速くてね、なかなか抜けなかったんですけど、ワンミスをねちょっと拾って1位になれまして、その後はもう淡々ととにかく元島選手につなぐことだけを考えて走りました。
So about his first stint, about the overtake, the rival, he was obviously very strong, but he did have a little mistake. I didn't miss that. Full concentration on his full stint, and he kept his pace. He brought his car back, but unfortunately he lost some times at the pit, so I'm going to ask him about that. 1番手のまま車戻ってきたんですけれども、ピットで今ちょっと順位を下げてしまってるんですけれども、ここら辺のところいかがですか？
ちょっとこの FCY 中のピットインが NG と言われてたのでステイしてたんですね。そしたら2番手以降が入ったので、ちょっと今その辺は確認中ですけれども、これどうなるかちょっとわからないので、様子を見たいと思います。
はい、わかりました。ありがとうございます。So there was some miscommunication and misunderstanding about the pit, the timing. They are just checking about the, but they have lost a lot of grids.
Okay, so a little bit of confusion in the pit stop cycle for the 24, but same applies to the 18. And so a very mixed up field as we go back to green flag racing. Next lap around, Kawabata 296 has taken over from Suzuki. That car was third position pre-pit stops. Sasahara in the 9 ahead. Has taken over from Takai in the Bingo Racing Ferrari. And then we've got in third position Banksy's car, the Porsche, Fujinami now in that car, in third spot. So it completely flipped everything. Honor's racing in the 45. Kei Cosolino, the Italian-Japanese, has now Hello, good morning. Cosolino has taken over the number 45. He's in 4th position. And then the 18, which was in 2nd spot pre-pit stop, Kobayashi, is now in 5th position with the number 1 of Team Machina Uematsu's Ferrari taken over by Suzuki in 6th. Yeah, and we still haven't got to our leader from the last stint. Then we get to 7th position. Then we get to Uchida's Mercedes, now with Motojima in the car, but only 7th spot, 7 cars to get through. There's also a slow stop from the K-Tunes Racing Ferrari. Takagi 8th spot, always the stronger of that pairing. Of course, he's the pro driver, but in relation to the others around, we saw him in sometimes, I do remember Fuji, as far, was it Fuji Okayama, as fast as the GT World Challenge drivers, if not faster. So Takagi has the ability to absolutely carve through this field. Right, safety car lights are out. Safety car is heading to pit lane, and a really, really good start from Kawabata to go back to racing here at Sugo for the final 20 minutes of race 1 of the Japan Cup. And there's going to be a lot of sorting out to do. Under pressure is the number 66 of Fujinami from Cosolino, who attacks into turn 1 right on the tail of that Porsche. And I don't think it's going to be very long before the Fujinami Porsche is disposed of by Kei Cosolino. Remember, we've got the pro drivers in the cars now, and so the pace and the intensity is going to be ramped up by our pro drivers. The number 1 machine, Suzuki, in 6th position, sort of out of position really, because he is the pro driver. He is the AM driver in a basically pro field, because the number 1 is an AM combination. He is going to find himself swallowed up by the 24. In fact, the 24 I think has already got past. Not a necessarily very strong start from Takagi. 8th position, stays 8th, definitely at the back of shot. And work to do for the K-Tunes dominators. You know, they basically won everything last year. They didn't win here. That was Bingo Racing, who took both the races, race 1 and race 2. But then they basically won everything else. It's a bit wide from Fujinami through that final turn. This surely is going to allow Cosolino more momentum through that final turn, and looking under the rear wing of the Porsche 911 RSR to go try and round the outside. That's going to be a very, very brave move if Kei Cosolino can do it. He cannot. Did something fall off the car when he tried that? I'm sure it did. You're on board with the 45 now. And the 666 in defensive mode here. So Cosolino needs to be careful, because if he's driving defensively ahead, that means lap times are being sapped. It also is allowing the 9 and the 296 to get away ahead, but it will be allowing Kobayashi in the 18 and Motojima in the 24 to join this party. And that is not what Cosolino needs. Battle resumed behind Cosolino there. And actually the Mercedes potentially having a quick look, decided against overtaking. Let's take a look at this move once again. Very unlikely to happen, Cosolino, but what comes off the car? Or am I just dreaming? There. Yeah, there was a very slight touch. I think that's a little bit of bodywork from the rear end of the Porsche. Cosolino later on the brakes, but ultimately no space, and there was a little bit of rubbing in the midpoint between turn 1 and 2. Fastest lap of the race from Kawabata, a 1:20.536. Our pro drivers lighting up the timing screens now. Kawabata from Sasahara, 1 second separates those two. Then it's 1.7 seconds to this battle for third. A little bit of a gap then to Kobayashi and Motojima for 5th position. And then 6.2 back for K-Tunes 98 of Takagi. Wow. He has got past Suzuki now and is having a better lap time. Will soon be joining that Mercedes ahead of him. But it's not, as I say, the domination that we saw last year. It really opens the door for the Japan Cup to be highly competitive in 2025. Under the rear wing, there's the other K-Tunes. We've almost forgot they have another car. The Lexus has just been unable to do anything, really. Fukujumi in 9th position. And actually, at least now has cleared the GTC cars. And has Suzuki ahead of him. Sugo, Sportsland Sugo circuit. A very difficult track to find a way past. If you're not making a move into turn 1, then it's very, very tough. Right, 96 as a 10-second penalty. But why? It doesn't say. That's a shame. Unsafe release. Okay, so that we didn't see that, but the Lexus being given an unsafe release penalty. And what's going on here for the car guy? 66 here. Can't see if there's a tyre or suspension issue, but he's going slowly. Big lock up into turn 1. Oof. Properly stamped on the brakes, and you can see exactly why. Not want to run straight on there. Has he lost the brakes? Or was that just a massive lockup that now is going to be feeling highly uncomfortable? We'll see if he dives into the pits at the end of this lap. Meanwhile, still battling going on for the lead of the race and also for 3rd position. Cozzolino now up ahead of Fujinami. No, it's not. It's a change for the lead of the race. It's Sasahara ahead of Kawabata. He's lined it up nicely. They've got a little bit of traffic ahead of him. But Bingo Racing, that took victory here last year in a Corvette, may well be on course to taking victory in race 1 in a new Ferrari that they've only had running for a couple of days. But Sasahara ahead of Kawabata. Fujinami and Cozzolino still at it in 3rd position. Kobayashi, Motojima joining that party. Takagi still not there, still 2 seconds back from them. And Sasahara now checking out at the head of the field. Into the pits comes the car guy Ferrari, the 66, and that's going to be coming into retirement, I imagine. So, is that a ABS failure, perhaps? Or is he just coming in to get a new set of tyres? Because he's absolutely rooted those fronts. Bingo Racing with LM Course leading in Sugo with 5th remaining. This is how he did the move, and it was using the traffic of K-Tunes Racing, deciding just to go the opposite side of that Supra. Very, very clever move there. Right, Emily's down in pit lane. She's got another driver to catch up with. That's here.
カナバ級ビンゴレーシングの武井選手にお話聞いていきたいと思うんですけれども、ちょうどつい先ほどオーバーテイクがしまして、今、ラップリーダーです。リーダー。
はい、笹原選手なんで必ず抜いてくれると思っていました。だけど一発で決めてくれてさすがだなって見てて非常になんか楽しいです。
So now they are the race leader. Of course, he believed and he always trusted in his partner, but he made it again. He's just showed it again to us, and he's really proud and excited for the race coming on. では、ご自身のスティントも少し振り返っていただきたいんですけれども、車の調子や仕上がりなどはいかがでしたか？
そうですね。車のフィーリングすごい良くて、ただなかなか抜くには至らなかったんですけど、前の選手にしっかりついていって、 とにかく笹原選手がペース持っているのは昨日から分かってたので、なるべく前走者のギャップを縮めて入ろうと思ってて、ちょっと自分たちはちょっとラッキーな展開になったかなと思ってます。
わかりました。この後ですも頑張ってください。ありがとうございます。So he was just talking about his team himself. The car's really looking good. Unfortunately, he couldn't make any overtakes, but still the potential of the car is very high. He did his best to shorten the gaps, and as he said before, he is believing in his partner, trusting him full power, and he's looking forward to the race. Back to you.
Ara extending that advantage at the head of the field, 1.8 seconds now. That is the gap between himself and Kawabata. Fastest lap of the race being clocked by the number 9 Bingo Racing Ferrari. And he is setting off into the distance. This is the battle we're watching here for 4th position. Cozzolino clearing Fujinami. And now we've got Kobayashi and Motojima trying to find their way through. Defense from Fujinami. Putting that yellow Ferrari to the outside of the first couple of turns. Got to be careful there because it can easily open the door for the Max Racing Mercedes to come through. So he's got to make this move clean. There's his race progression. Starting down in 8th position and up to 4th now. You can see that Kei Cozzolino has checked out. And in fact, Cozzolino making inroads on Kawabata now as well. So we could see that 45 Ponos Racing machine up to 2nd spot before too long. 10 minutes remaining of the race. Still so much to unravel here. And for our intrepid press officer, try and work out why it completely mixed up post-pit. How did everyone get their pit stops so wrong? Now onto the main straight then. Max Racing, Mercedes looked really strong through the final turn. Needs to get down the inside though. And they're not close enough this time. Going to stay line astern. 66 leads 18, leads 24. Let's go back down to Emily.
18号車チームアップガレージの秋田選手です。ご自身のスティントを改めて振り返っていただけますでしょうか。
そうですね、オープニングして2周目ぐらいの、試験立ち上がりで、少し1回ミスしてしまって、そこで内田選手に、抜かれてしまったんですけども、ペースはそれほど悪くないかなという状況であったので、とりあえず今は小林さんになんとか、できるところまで行ってもらって、レース2でもしっかり結果出したいと思ってます。はい、
今まさに表彰台多分争っているところだと思うんですけれども、ここをもう争えるだけの車のポテンシャルっていうのは感じられました。
そうですね、はい、十分争えるポテンシャルにはなっていると思います。はい。
ではあとは相方さんを信じましょう。
はい、ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。So he was just talking about his first stint. Obviously, he said he had a little mistake at the chicane. Unfortunately, he gave his position away to his rivals. But the car itself, it does have a lot of potential. Right now at the grid, his partner is trying to win for the podium. He believes the potential of the car and the driver will take them to the podium. Back to you.
Now up to 2nd position ahead of Kawabata. Haven't seen that move happen, but here is the 18 of Kobayashi crawling all over the back of Fujinami, desperately trying to find a way through, but to say Fujinami's Porsche strong through that final uphill right-hand turn, and that is what is keeping him at the moment in this 4th position. Are they closing in, I wonder, on the 296? Kawabata's pace not as strong as the others around him. From the lead of the race, now 6 seconds back from Sasahara. Cozzolino has the fastest lap of the race, 1:20.214. As the run-up, not the run-up, yes, the run-up Nissan 360 gets out of the way of this battle. Also, look to the background. Takagi now has finally found his stride. And the 98 Ferrari in 7th position, starting to join Motojima, Kobayashi, and Fujinami in this battle for 4th position. This final turn, this is where you need to be so strong and get as close as possible. And our camera position there makes it look like the Ferrari's got good legs. Maybe it has. Maybe it is this opportunity. Yes, surely now Kobayashi has the best opportunities he's had ever to get down the inside of the Porsche, but the Porsche defends so heavily into turn one, forcing the Ferrari around the outside, but massively compromising his speed. And there is no way through. Sasahara leads, Cozzolino leads Kawabata. And then this entertaining battle. 7-7 team who were invited to the last race of last year, coming back for a full season, putting on an entertaining show for us. 4th spot right now for Fujinami and Banksy, who was in that car before, but traffic, this is going to play a big part. I tell you what, great work from that K-Tunes Toyota to get out of the way and has not compromised any of those three. Let's go and talk to Banksy then, who's with Emily down in pit lane.
77レーシングのピットにおりまして、バンクシー選手にもお話をお伺いすることができそうです。ちょうど今ですね、今ディフェンディングをしているところなんですけれども、モニターでご覧になられてみて、パートナーの戦いぶりいかがですか？
ちょっとポルシェが最終コーナーのアクセルずっと踏めないんですよね、今週。それでやっぱり1コーナーがずっと、今、1台抜かれて今抜いたのかな。ちょっと1コーナーがなので防戦してる感じで、今ちょっと2台にバトルね頑張ってますけど、ちょっとヒヤヒヤしながら見てます。
フリー走行から予選からずっと最終コーナーのところでアクセルがちょっと踏みづらかったんですか？
そうなんですよ。やっぱりライバルたちはアクセルも明らかに踏んでるんですけど、ポルシェずっと曲がんなくて踏めなくてっていう感じがずっと続いてて、今日もやっぱそれで今苦戦してる感じですね。はい。わ
かりました。ではこの後の戦いぶりちょっと見守らせていただきます。頑張ってください。
はい、ありがとうございます。
So he was just talking about there is some issues with the axle when he's stepping into the axle from the free and from at the qualifying and just in his stint he couldn't really step in properly, so there maybe is some issues going on with the car so far. Back to you.
Yeah, and that's that 666 Porsche being dive bombed by the 18, but the team up garage having to run deep into turn one, which then invited not only the 666 but also the Mercedes. Here's the replay of it. So a really good run from the 18 up the main straight, turns in, claims the apex, but then runs deep, gets a twitch on. The Ferrari goes wide, the Porsche comes through, as does the Mercedes. So actually that is where I said if you're going to make a pass you need to make a clean one, otherwise you lose a position. And Fujinami holds on to 4th position, but Kobayashi drops down to 6th. New lap record for Sasahara at the head of the field. A 1:19.959. Ukyo Sasahara gets himself the fastest ever lap in GT3 of this Sugo racetrack. And with it, 5-second advantage over Cozzolino, who raced in the GT World Challenge Championship last year. Italian born, but almost exclusively racing in Japan in his career, Kay. And he has a big, healthy advantage over the 3rd position 296 car. 3rd overall. There's the graphic. Corners Racing. Now perhaps Kawabata safe with a 2.6 second advantage over the battle we've been following so intently. There's the one. And that is our AM winner, with Suzuki aboard the car. Now, what's the difference between themselves and the 71? Big gap between their rival and themselves, so not expecting much change there. And He's 4.5 seconds off. Fukuzumi in the 96 Lexus. 24 seconds back off the lead, that Lexus, showing what happens when you qualify at the tail of the field. And get the feeling that we're not going to see the starring performances from the Lexus that we saw last year. The level in Japan Cup has absolutely increased. Right, here we go. Mercedes surely now with an opportunity to get past Fujinami. Actually, the 18 of Kobayashi dropping back from these two. And again, good defense from the 666. Holds that inside line and gets the apex to the second turn. The Mercedes has nowhere, therefore, to go. And is that another frustrating lap for Max Racing, sitting, looking at the tail of the 7.7 Racing Porsche? They're not running to the best of their capacity. There's no doubt about that. Here comes Takagi as well on the tail of this group in the K-Tunes Ferrari, the 98 car that was our champion in Pro-Am last year overall. I think overall, Uematsu was the champion. They are slightly taking time out of Kawabata, even if they're fighting amongst themselves. There isn't going to be enough time to get themselves into the battle for third position. They have been closing in. Right, over the line. One more lap to go then for Ukyo Sasahara. I can't tell you how they inherited second position. I can tell you how Sasahara did away with Kawabata and got himself to the head of the field. Another attempt by the Max Racing Mercedes. Maybe needs to be a bit more clever. Maybe needs to be a bit more experimental. It's a hard place to overtake, and therefore you really need to catch your rival off guard if you want to make it stick. And Fujinami, I don't think, has the ability to do so. Back markers maybe going to cause an issue here. Banksy, the Banksy 7.7 Racing machine getting very close to the back of that to GTC Porsche. For a second, that could have been disastrous, but the Mercedes also taking evasive action, and they're not going to catch the next one, are they? Oh, sorry, the next one is actually the GT3 rival. So, round the final turn then, Ukyo Sasahara, who shares Bingo Racing's LM Corsa car with Shinji Takai, is going to open their 2025 account with a win once again in Sugo. Victory for Bingo Racing in a brand new car for them with limited experience. Sasahara beating Cozzolino by 5.2 seconds. Kawabata coming across the line to round out our podium in Pro-Am. But what an entertaining race it's been from Fujinami, Motojima, Kobayashi and Takagi, in the fully AM category. It's going to be this number one car that dominated this team in AM last year with Uematsu. And even if you dilute his presence and add Suzuki to the mix, they still have the same achievement. Over the line, Suzuki takes the victory in the GT3 AM category. We've also had the GT4 Silver AM winner over the line. That is the 39 Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia. There's Tiger Wu, who has taken victory in the GTC AM category in his amazing liveried Porsche Carrera Cup car. A decent advantage he had in the end over the High Point Racing Porsche. So very, very entertaining. First Japanese race of the year for the Japan Cup. Later on today, we will have the second encounter, both races in the same day. And we should have a full complement of 18 cars for that one, because the one retiree, the Maezawa Ferrari, probably just needs a good hoover. And we will have that car back out of the circuit and get a chance to see Yokomitsu take that car in the first stint with the pro drivers, with all of these drivers starting the race this evening. Definitely a big question mark over how so many teams got their pit stop duration wrong during that full course yellow. It should have been simple. Race control tried to make it as simple as possible. Go in to the pits under that full course yellow, and therefore no order change will happen. But we saw a big order change in the first part of the race, the 18 and the 24 fighting for victory, and then bizarrely post pit stops it was the number 9 and the number 296, and in the end pace of Sugo Sasahara better than everybody else. Yes. Bingo Racing have done it. Victory once again in Sugo. But I think most impressively with this brand new car to them, limited experience, and yet still in a field that is ever increasing in performance, taking the victory and having to work for it as well. Further down the field, 296, second position in the end for Kawabata, who shared that car with Suzuki in the first stint. In the end, 15 seconds back from Sasahara. When do we go racing? With 20 minutes remaining, so that's almost a second a lap. 1 second per, not per lap, sorry, per minute. It's probably a second lap, actually. Right, Emily's down with our winners. Let's hear from Sasahara and Takai.
さあ見事ジャパンカップ開幕戦制しましたのはカナバ級ビンゴレーシング、おめでとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
もうね、本当見ててこちらもワクワクしたんですけれども、まず改めて武井選手ご自身の、今のお気持ちとね、パートナーにどんな、言葉伝えたいですか？
そうですね、なんか息子の誕生日が31日、5月、僕の誕生日が今月の6月21日、誕生日プレゼントしてくれたかなみたいな、最高です。はい。
はい、武井選手がね、前半素晴らしい走りで、何よりあとピット作業、ドライバーチェンジ含めて一生懸命みんなで練習した甲斐があって、そのおかげでジャンプアップできて、あとチームがね、本当素晴らしい車を用意してくれたので、あとはうまくオーバーテイクするだけだったんで、はい、今率直に嬉しいです。
So first of all, Mr. Takei was just talking about, well, Sasahara's driving was absolutely amazing. My son's birthday is very soon, so he gave us a very, very special happy birthday present. And Ukyo was just talking about his pit stop. The pit stop, the team worked really, really hard this weekend. They practiced so many times and it went completely well. He just wants to say thank you very much to his team and super proud of the good job. そして午後のレースはですね、お二方なんと P1 からのスタート、このまま2連勝に向けた意気込みもいただけますか？
そうですね、ただすごいライバルもすごい速いので、そんなに甘くないのかなと。ただ笹原選手はギャップを作ってくれると思うので、あとは僕が守れるかどうか。だけど欲を出すとろくなことがないので、しっかりとゴールしたいと思ってます。はい。
はい、優勝したことによって15秒のサクセスペナルティが重ねられるんですけど、順位というよりは、まずは僕らのベストをしっかり尽くして、まずはこの296、そして武井選手とともに、しっかりチェックを受けたいと思います。
素晴らしい戦い期待してます。改めておめでとうございます。So they were just talking about the race 2 coming up this afternoon. Of course, because of this P1, they are super happy, but they are going to have some success penalties, so they have to focus for another race coming up this afternoon. Once again, congratulations to Bingo Racing.
A reminder then that for our second race of the weekend and subsequent races moving forward, top 3 carrying that success penalty, so 15 seconds extra in the pits for the number 9 that has taken the GT3 Pro-Am victory GT3 AM victory going to the number 1, with the GT4 victory to the 39, and the GT4 AM to the 97, and Tiger Wu taking victory in GTC. The full result then, 5 seconds between Bingo Racing and Ponos Racing, with Corners Racing 15 seconds back, and then that entertaining battle between the Porsche and the Mercedes and the number 18 Ferrari. In the end, no real influence from K-Tunes Racing in 7th and 8th positions, and then Team Machina in 9th spots. 44 seconds back in the end in that all-AM machine. The rest of our 16 finishers with a retirement from Car Guy Racing. We didn't see, must have been a brake problem for them, and Maezawa spinning out into the gravel trap. Let's go back down to Emily, who will have another of our winners from our different categories.
では続きまして GT3 のアマクラスで見事1位を獲得しましたチームマキナの皆さんにお話聞いていきたいと思いますが、改めて開幕戦、クラス優勝いかがでしょうか。
はい、去年も開幕戦は勝ちましたからね、はい、チャンピオン目指してまっしぐらです。はい、ありがとうございます。
はい、チャンピオンチームに混ぜてもらって今年初参戦なんですけども、優勝させてもらってもうめちゃくちゃ嬉しいです。次に向けて頑張ります。
今後も頑張ってください。ありがとうございます。So last year they won the opening round of the Japan Cup. They're really happy to have another victory here in Sugo again. Looking forward for the race coming up this afternoon. As they are the champions of the GT3 AM class, they want to repeat that once again this year. Back to you.
And they have a high chance to do so, I would have thought. They took plenty, if not all, of the AM victories last year. I'm just going to consult my notes on that one because I seem to remember them being pretty dominant in the AM Cup. And yes, the first 2 rounds completely dominant, but then Comet Racing came in and took victories.
それでは続きまして GT4 クラスを見事制しましたのはカナバ39トヨタガズーレーシングインドネシアのお二方です。野中選手、改めて優勝おめでとうございます。
はい、ありがとうございます。ハリダルマさんがまずは無事に1位で帰ってきてくれて、僕の方はFCY からの、スタートで SC など、レース展開がちょっと動くような感じでしたけども、落ち着いて最後までペース、プッシュし続けてタイムも安定したんでよかったです。
ありがとうございます。Do you speak English? 日本語です。Okay, do you speak? Okay, English is better. So, okay. So, how was your stint? It's a class victory for you guys in GT4 class.
Yeah. Of course, I'm happy. Me with Nonaka. Just trying the best from qualifying and until start. Try to no make mistake and alhamdulillah we get the good result.
Perfect. So good luck this afternoon too to both of you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。
So, a Japanese translation now for Mr. Harima's comments. Well, he was really happy with the car with his stint. 日本語に訳しますね。失礼しました。ハリダルマ選手がですね、非常に車も安定をしていて、気持ちよくペッシュすることができたということで、GT4 クラスで素晴らしいパフォーマンスをね、それぞれのドライバーが見せているので、午後も頑張りますというようなコメントをいただきました。以上です。
Great to chat with our GT4 winners. Toyota Gazoo Racing, again, very successful last year in that category. It looks as though we're going to have a bit of a track parade happening in a few moments' time. Lots of public cars lining up to get a chance to drive around this Sugo racetrack. They do some very entertaining things here in Japan when it comes to activation. We did have D Station, of course, in GT4 as well in the AM Cup. It was the Silver AM Cup where Toyota Gazoo Racing took only 2 victories in the end. We did have YZ Racing and Wakayama Toyota with us in GT4 last year. So the wins were split by the various different entries. Look at that for a podium. I tell you what, that's a bit sexy, isn't it? Not only that very cool door in the middle of the podium, but it's a broken brick. I haven't seen one of those before. Wow, that is so cool. I've never seen that. That is absolutely brilliant. That is one way to make an entrance right. Social media, clip that baby up and make it go viral. That is very, very cool. Top 3 in Pro-Am and top 3 overall for our first race, the Japan Cup for 2025. Mr. Sasaki, the Sportsland Sugo president, presenting the trophies. And it's very short-lived, the celebrations for race 1, because race 2 coming up in just over 3 hours' time. A quick turnaround for our teams and drivers to get themselves back prepared to do it all over again. A busy day of racing when it's Japan Cup standalone, the only standalone race that they have this year in Sugo. They will then be supporting the GT World Challenge Asia across 2 of the races, and then finish off in what I think will be a Saturday race for Japan Cup in Suzuka in the middle of September. Yes, these boys know how to celebrate on the podium. Sugo Racing have done it before. They've been on this podium this time last year. Can they do it 2 times over? You have to say that the grid didn't really lend itself to bingo racing being the dominators. The race order. The main disappointment will be H's down there 7th and 8th. Just 10 points to their name across both cars. The team that was so used to winning last year. Sasahara is going to be a difficult man to beat when it comes to the start of race 2. And then you'll just have to wait to see how the race pans out. How much of an advantage Sasahara has over the rest of the field for his teammate Takai to then absorb. So now to our next podium, the GT3 AM podium. Victory to the number 1. Seeing the run-up sports Nissan there, P2. So a maybe we missed that, but Akilan dropping to third by the end of the race. Just the four competitors, but the 66 car guy Ferrari retiring out of the race. Always big smiles from the Machina guys. Uematsu sharing that car with Suzuki this year. The result very much still the same. Just a shame we don't have the McLaren for variance, really. But the Ferrari 296, absolutely the preferred car across many regions in motorsport. Le Mans 24 Hours this weekend happening in France, and the most popular car is the Ferrari GT3. There are more here than there are there. And it makes up the majority of our grid here in Sugo this weekend as well. Emily, as usual, having a lot of fun with the podiums. This is Mr. Uematsu. And sensibly spraying out so that the race suits can be used again this afternoon. 21 degrees, so not particularly warm. Will this warmth, this dryness bring rain this afternoon? One of our many race queens down there in the paddock. And I imagine we're getting ourselves ready for the AM standings. GT4 podiums now getting ready, with Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia moving forward under the podium to welcome the number 39 crew of Manopo and Nonaka. They'll be hoping to have more GT4 cars in the field in the future to have a bit of a race against. It's third position for the 97 K-Tunes Toyota Supra. They're also the AM winners. And then the two silver AM pairings of Sunrise Boulevard and Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia. When you look at GT4 in Europe, there's like 56 to 60 cars entered at most races. Highly popular class of car, but I guess here in Japan, you want to go racing, you go racing in a GT3 car. By the way, K-Tunes Racing 97 with Betty Chen, the only female in our field, as you can see her being presented the trophy there on the right hand side. But very good to have a female racer with us. Congratulations to all of our podium finishers across our different categories. Very entertaining racing. Still question marks over that pit stop situation, why some teams lost so much time over the others, but in the end the pace, probably regardless, because we obviously went to safety car and bunched the field up. Tasahara in that number 9 the class the field, a new fastest lap record of 1:19.959 gets taken in to this afternoon's race. Broken the 1:20 barrier, but we held since 2022. It might not be possible this afternoon if that rain does roll in, as we've seen so often here in Sugo. Champagne sprays on the GT4 podium. Congratulations to all of our finishers. Still probably one more to go because we've got the GTC guys as well to celebrate. Just 2 cars entered in GTC for this round. Many more on the entry list for the full season. High Point and Bingo was the GTC podium. Just waiting to reset that podium. Join us in the afternoon, say about 2.5 to 3 hours time. We go racing once again here in Sugo for the second race of the season. Then you have to wait till the middle of July before they go racing again. The end of August is rounds 3, and the middle of September is the final weekend of action for Japan Cup 2025. It won't be long. Just 2 weekends' time, we will possibly see a provisional calendar for next year as well. Traditional press conference of the SRO at the Spa 24 hours, the last weekend in June. Big crown jewel of SRO GT3 racing. Tends also to be the first news of 2026. Tiger Woo, on his own, no friends, did the double, did the full hour himself. Yes, Tiger. You won, didn't you? There you go. On the top step of the podium. Very good. Trophies to GTC. Tiger Woo, Victor. The start of the 2025 race season for Japan Cup, and a mixed up qualifying through wet conditions had Team Up Garage at the head of the field ahead of Max Racing through turn 1. It was very well behaved on the first couple of laps with a plethora of Ferraris in the mix. A mistake from Team Up Garage, Akita losing the lead of the race, and then after about 4 or 5 laps, Maezawa running wide onto the very, very wet grass, looping his 555 Ferrari into the gravel, and that gave us a full course yellow. Everybody pitting under full course yellow conditions, but some not maximising the time like they would with others, and it led to the 296 and 9 coming out of the pits together and inheriting the lead. 24 and the 18 dropping back, having made longer pit stops. When we went back to green flag racing again, it was fierce at the head of the field. Sasahara, the pro in the Bingo Racing number 9, trying to get around the 296. Further back, there was a battle with the 7-7 Porsche. This is how the number 9 did it, predicting the traffic better down the inside. It's hard fought racing and difficult to overtake in Sugo, but Sasahara did it. Moved Bingo Racing to the head of the field. A battle for fourth raged on with Fujinami, Motojima and Kobayashi. This was the best attempt from Kobayashi, but he lost 2 positions in the end, having tried to just gain the 1. And those positions would stay like that until the end of the race. Sasahara established a 5-second advantage by the time the checkered flag flew over Kei Cozzolino, who got the 45 car up to second. Kawabata in